Donald Trump has never quite been the isolationist that some in the base are. He aligns with them in some ways, he thinks about things. But I think to understand his foreign policy, there was a really interesting interview he gave to the New York Times ahead of his first term. I think in that period between winning and the inauguration, where he said his biggest frustration with US foreign policy is when, the fact that you don't keep people guessing. He thinks too many presidents said what they were going to do, and therefore there was no surprise and the other side knew what to do. So I think that he likes this element of people not knowing if he's actually going to do it or not. Now the question is, how does this play out when it comes to how do Russia, Iran, China see things about, Taiwan, Ukraine? Does this change that calculation anyway?
Washington is waking up, and it's been quite a night. President Trump has said that the US carried out, quotes, a large-scale strike against Venezuela and, quotes, captured its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, and his wife. Fire and smoke was seen rising above the Venezuelan capital in the early hours of this morning, and within hours the US president was claiming it was a strike carried out by US Delta Force. Needless to say, as you might imagine, the Venezuelan government declared a national emergency and denounced the act of military aggression. Well, Washington is waking up. Our Washington editor, Katy is on the line now. What's your understanding of the events this morning, Katy?
Well, we know that the events have come after a long campaign of rising escalation, aggressions from the Trump administration towards Maduro. And that has begun with talk of going against the cartels, the sense that, yes, Donald Trump is someone who is against forever wars, but there's a different approach when it comes to America's own backyard and the regional backyard, so to speak. And therefore, I think there's been a sense of brinkmanship. We've also had a blockade on how far he would go. But what we're hearing from those involved in the administration is that these plans were being mooted for several days. There was some talk about them doing them a few days earlier, but that was delayed due to other action they were taking regarding ISIS. And now they have moved, and we're now waiting to find out more details when it comes to the terms in which Maduro has apparently left Venezuela along with his wife, and what this means in terms of potential regime change and the following steps.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the crucial issue is, was it, as Trump said at 4 o'clock in the morning or whenever it was, a capture of an actual capture of Maduro, or was it a negotiated deal whereby Maduro gets spirited out of the country somewhere? I mean, do we know any more about that?
No, we are beginning to hear the justification that members of the administration are making when it comes to this. So Marco Rubio, we understand, has been on the phone to figures, because some Republicans have already been expressing concern, saying, what is the justification for this strike? And we know that Marco Rubio is saying that, Maduro was arrested by US personnel. That's what one senator has said Rubio has told him. We haven't had the confirmation from Rubio yet. But of course, that's arrested, and also a suggestion that Maduro could stand on criminal charges in the US. Now, again, this is coming from a Republican lawmaker. We haven't had administration confirmation yet. And of course, we have a press conference later today, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, where he is staying, where Marco Rubio was there recently celebrating the new year. So we'll get more details then. But of course, if you are going to have this go through to arrest and charges, there's only so much one person can willingly probably leave.
Well, indeed. How does it play? How does all this play with Trump voters and the MAGA base? Because it's a kind of isolationist base, isn't it? Except they may, I suppose, make the distinction for things which happen, as they put it, within their own backyard.
Exactly. There are certainly some figures in MAGA who have warned against regime change in Venezuela or forcing it, saying if it's what the Venezuelan people want, all they bring about, and if it can be done peacefully, perhaps. But they were worried about the idea of the military, US military, getting involved. But then at the same time, to your point, because this is America's backyard, so to speak, because you have this pivot in the Trump administration towards the Western Hemisphere, saying that, they think they have more of a natural right to look after what's happening near them than in, wars far away. And you combine that with the fact that some of MAGA simply like the idea of getting the cartels, seeing cartels as a something that becomes an America issue when the drugs come into America. There is, I think, more appetite for intervention in Venezuela than other countries.
Yeah.
But I think there's still a potential limit to that. And that's what we're slightly trying to work out now, which is what are the next steps? Because you've had figures like Steve Bannon, you've had some Republican lawmakers previously say regime change was a step too far for them.
Well, I was about to say, what does happen next? He's obviously got Venezuela sorted out, or so far. He's also threatening Iran with strikes, and Iran is getting very antsy about it. He's taking on quite a lot, isn't he?
He is. And I think, lots of presidents in their second term, and obviously most go straight into the second term rather than having that break for years, do focus a lot on foreign affairs rather than domestic issues. They often find it more legacy building and perhaps something where you need less the consent of your party in areas. But I still think Trump's focus on the world stage has surprised some from what they expected when he first came in. And then, of course, for the Nobel Peace Prize. So lots of people are looking at this and saying, hang on a minute, how do strikes tally with that? But then what you will hear from members of the administration is the phrase peace through strength. And they will say, well, Donald Trump has never quite been the isolationist that some in the base are. He aligns with them in some ways, he thinks about things. But I think to understand his foreign policy, there was a really interesting interview he gave to the New York Times ahead of his first term. I think in that period between winning and the inauguration, where he said his biggest frustration with US foreign policy is when, the fact that you don't keep people guessing. He thinks too many presidents said what they were going to do, and therefore there was no surprise and the other side knew what to do. So I think that he likes this element of people not knowing if he's actually going to do it or not. Now the question is, how does this play out when it comes to how do Russia, Iran, China see things about, Taiwan, Ukraine? Does this change that calculation in any way?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And a shade worrying. Katy Balls, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. This afternoon here, of course. Katy, you can read more from Katy in the Sunday Times tomorrow.
Huevo, qué locura. Moscaí. Mira esa mierda, explotaron allá toda esa mierda porque tú me estás explotando.
Mierda, marico, se prendió el peo en esta mierda, ¿oyó?
Huevo. Mamá, huevo, ¿qué mierda es esta?
Amor. Ay, no. Mira eso. Mira eso.
Marico. Mamá, huevo, yo, Juan, casi no suena muy duro, ¿viste?